one of these beings for what they really are, be it reptilian or not, by using her words.
That's here! Not real!
I would have loved to be on that flight, by the way. That would have been a cool flight to be on. Probably not. Probably been a stressful flight after she said that. She said something about the plane going down and something else. I would not like to be on that flight.
I would probably, go off with her.
Like, this lady's right. He isn't real. I'm out of here. Question. What other commands can your kind use into our minds? Something like serve us or obey? Answer. This is again a strange question. We are not your enemy. Most of us are not. So why should we do this? To answer your question, it depends on the strength of the human mind and on the strength of the descending reptilian. There is no serve us or serve the mind. Such a command is much more difficult to induce. If the human mind and consciousness is weak and the reptilian inducer is experienced in instances and with some hours in the sun before he or she tries to do it, then it could probably work for a certain time. There are secret teachings about such things, but I've never learned anything about it. I use my primary abilities for mimicry and for communication with my own kind, and sometimes for other private things, but I've never used them to harm humans or their mind. I would appreciate it if we can end with this topic here. I think she's annoyed at the fact that the person asking questions is making her out to be some type of monstrous being who has, this murderous intent, but in fact, she's just kind of annoyed at that. Like, no, we're not. If I wanted to kill you, I'd do it already. You'd be dead. I'd eat you. I'd eat your flesh. But that's not the case. Also, the switch idea is very cool because there are many abduction cases and many cases of alien encounters. If you look at the case of Travis Walton, where these gray-ish aliens, or the ones that sort of, there might not have been gray aliens, but something similar to the gray aliens, were performing a procedure on Travis when he awoke during his abduction. He then fought them off, walked into a different room, and encountered these Nordic-like beings, or these tall hominids that were kind of jacked. They didn't speak, however, and they were wearing like fish bowls over their head. Almost silly, almost like a silly interpretation of a human. It makes you think that what if those gray extraterrestrials, noticing Travis's demeanor and his panicked state, decided we should probably give him something a little less alarming to look at, and then turn that switch on. Maybe that was the case. Very interesting to think about. I've always thought about, were the Greys working for these Nordic-looking folk, or were they both working for something else behind the curtain, or is it just the Greys or whatever entity playing with their minds? Last question. You said earlier that you can hide your UFO. Do you use the same ability to do this? Answer, yes, but on a technical base. There's a powerful device inside each craft which is able to send an artificial signal to your minds to convince you that you either see nothing but only the sky, or that you see normal aircraft like planes instead of our ships. This isn't used very often, because we avoid human public when we move in the atmosphere. If you are able to see our UFOs, it means that the device is either defective or deactivated for some reason. The camouflage effect didn't work on photos. To answer this possible question of you already in advance. But why should someone make a photo of the sky if he could not see anything unusual there? By the way, most of the surface entry points near to our tunnels are also hidden with such a device, and your kind will generally see only normal cave walls instead of the door. That is one reason why I've said that I doubt that you will be able to find such a secret door to our world, but it has happened a few times in the past. Well, what has happened to those people? Man, that's interesting. A device that sends a signal to your mind. Again, this type of technology seems way more feasible to me than actual cloaking, or rendering something invisible. It seems like, maybe there is some technology that could do that in a way, but I definitely think that our mind is the weakest link, because our perception, if you can manipulate that, you can manipulate anything. You don't need actual light-bending technology. You just need something that alters your perception. It's an interesting form of tech that I haven't given too much thought of. Question, back to you in your own history. You've mentioned the race of the Elohim, who have created our race, our human race. From where did they come, and how did they look like? What exactly happened when they arrive? Are they our god? Answer. The Elohim came from this universe, from the solar system you call Aldebaran in your maps. They were a very tall humanoid species with usually blonde hairs and very white skin. They avoided the sunlight because it hurt their skin and eyes. This was absolutely unbelievable for a sun-loving species like us. They seemed to be intelligent and peaceful at the beginning, and we started a more or less friendly communication with them, but later they showed their real intentions and plans. They wanted to evolve the apes to a new breed, and we were a disturbing factor for them on their new zoo planet. At first, they caught around 10,000 or maybe even 20,000 of your simian ancestors, and they left the planet for some 100 years. When they returned, they brought your now more human ancestors back. When they left Earth again for some thousands of years and the primitive pre-humans lived together with us without major problems, they were just afraid of our aircraft and technology. The Elohim had taught their mind and enhanced their brain and their body structure, and they were able now to use tools and fire. The Elohim returned within 23,000 years 7 times and accelerated the evolution speed of certain of your kind. You must understand that you are not the first human civilization on the planet. The first advanced humans, who lived at the same time with less developed pre-humans because the Elohim had experimented with different speeds and stages of evolution, with technology and speech existed around 700,000 years ago on this planet. The scientists have not understood this because they found only the bones of pre-humans and some primitive cave drawings showing advanced humans and flying devices. This genetically advanced human breed lived together with us. They avoided contact with my kind because the Elohim teachers had warned them with misleading purpose that we are evil beings and that we lie to them. This is all extremely interesting. One thing that I like to think about as well is, let's say you were genetically engineering species on a planet. All right? Bit of a thought experiment. Obviously, if you can bounce around the universe, you would notice very quickly that there is an abundant amount of exoplanets. That there are probably billions of planets exactly like ours that are capable of sustaining simian life, or any type of life. It would be very strange to only do one of these experiments on one planet. If you have that type of technology, you would be doing this on potentially hundreds of thousands of planets at the same time. If you did this and created these little zoos where you can populate them with, you know, different species from other planets, bring them here, bring that species, alter it genetically so that, you know, the carbon dioxide levels here don't destroy it and the radiation is just right and the gravity and everything else, and put them here. And you can start populating all these planets kind of like zoos, which, you know, would make sense why we have octopus, because what a bizarre looking species. But we also have birds, and we also have, you know, Venus flytraps, and all these other strange things. The cool thing about all of this is that, as mentioned, they came back every, 27,000 years or whatever to bring the ancestors, or they came back 7 times during 27,000 years with space travel. And that type of technology, if I didn't have a home planet, let's say I lived in my spaceship, okay. Time is definitely relative. The way that people experience time here is different than if I was living on a surface that had more gravity, right? Hypothetically. So if my ship could, like in Interstellar, park itself next to a black hole for several hours, I could then hop back, and although it was only several hours, it might have been thousands of years for the things on the planet. So this evolution can actually be achieved technically from the extraterrestrial standpoint, perhaps within days. Think about it. If they have no home planet, they can just dip beside a black hole and watch the evolution happen within days, which might also account for the fact that they don't really care about us. You know, if you think of these abductions and how they sort of manhandle our species without any regard and say it's for the greater good, they just don't care. They do the thing, They hop back, and then they come back and do the thing to your ancestors. Interesting to think about. Well, after some centuries, the aliens decided to extinct their first creation, and they accelerated the evolution of a second and better test series, and so on and so on. The truth is that your modern human civilization is not the first on this planet Earth, but already the seventh. The buildings of the first breeds are lost, but the fifth civilization was the one which built with large triangular constructions you call Egyptian pyramids, today around 75,000 years ago. Your Egyptians just found that large ancient pyramids in the sand and tried, not very successful, to build similar constructions. And the sixth civilization was the one which built the cities which ruins you can find today beneath the sea in the so-called Bimini area around 16,000 years ago. The last creation of the seventh breed of yours here